So here is a wild question for you. What if I told you there is a country smaller than most American shopping malls that has been giving the middle finger to bigger nations for over 1,700 years? A place where you can literally walk from one end to the other in 30 minutes. Yet somehow they've managed to stay independent longer than any other republic on Earth. Meet San Marino, the world's most stubborn microstate. And today we're putting it to the ultimate test. Can you actually survive here on just 500 bucks? And what are these bizarre medieval rules that still govern daily life in 2025? San Marino isn't just another European postcard destination. This is a 24-square-mile middle finger to history, completely surrounded by Italy like a landlocked island of pure defiance. While empires rose and fell around them, while Napoleon swept across Europe, while two world wars raged, San Marino just sat there on its mountain, sipping wine and basically saying, nah, we're good. Founded in 301 AD by a Christian stonemason named Marinus, who was apparently really good at hide and seek, this tiny republic has outlasted the Roman Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, and probably your last 3 relationships combined. But here's where it gets interesting. San Marino doesn't just claim to be old, it's got the paperwork to prove it. We're talking about a constitution that dates back to 1600, making the United States look like that new kid at school. The country is so small that their entire population of 34,000 people could fit into a decent-sized football stadium, yet they've got their own government, their own stamps, and somehow their own Olympic team that shows up every 4 years to remind everyone they exist. The real kicker? This place operates under rules and traditions that would make a medieval king jealous. They've got laws about everything from car door slamming to domestic worker age limits that sound like they were written by someone who took the good old days way too seriously. And the cost of living, well, that's where a $500 experiment gets really spicy. Because San Marino has a reputation for being both cheaper than Italy and somehow more expensive at the same time. It's like economic quantum physics, but with better pasta. So buckle up, because we're about to take you on a tour of the most successful micronation experiment in human history, where ancient traditions meet modern problems, where you can accidentally commit tax evasion just by buying lunch in the wrong country, and where the entire government fits in a building smaller than your local Walmart. By the end of this adventure, you'll know exactly why San Marino has survived when countless other small states got gobbled up by their neighbors, and whether $500 is enough to live like a local in this mountain fortress of Mediterranean stubbornness. Let's talk about real estate, shall we? San Marino basically won the geological lottery by parking itself on top of Mount Titano, a 400-foot limestone giant that rises from the Italian countryside like nature's own middle finger. This isn't just any mountain. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site that has been giving invading armies the fingers since before your ancestors figured out agriculture. The entire country clings to these slopes like a determined mountain goat, with the capital city literally perched on the peak like some medieval fantasy novel come to life. Walking through San Marino is like navigating a real-life game of chutes and ladders, except them. Chutes are steep medieval streets that'll leave your calves burning, and the ladders are cable cars that haul tourists up and down like medieval elevators. With better views, the 3 towers of San Marino, Guaita, Sesta, and Montal stand guard over the countryside, like ancient stone sentinels that have been playing the world as longest game of King of the Hill and actually winning. But here's what makes San Marino's geography absolutely brilliant from a survival standpoint. Back in 301 AD, when St. Marinus decided to flee religious persecution and set up shop on this mountain, he picked the one spot in Italy that was basically impossible to conquer. Try attacking uphill, against defenders who know every stone, every path, every secret tunnel. It's like trying to storm a castle that nature built. Except the defenders have had 1,700 years to perfect their home field advantage. The country is shaped like a regular blob that someone drew while having a mild seizure, stretching about 8 miles north to south and 4 miles east to west. You've got 9 different municipalities crammed into this space: San Marino City, Borgo Maggiore, Serravalle, Acquaviva, Cisannuova, Domagnano, Fatano, Fiorentino, and Montegiardino. Each one has its own personality, from the tourist-heavy capital to sleepy residential areas where actual San Marinese people live. Actual lives when they are not posing for tourist photos. The landscape is a gorgeous mix of rolling hills, medieval architecture, and modern infrastructure trying to coexist without stepping on each other's toes. You'll find olive groves that have been producing oil since the Middle Ages right next to parking lots designed for tour buses from Rome. It's like time travel, but with better Wi-Fi and functional plumbing. The views from the top are absolutely insane. On a clear day, you can see the Adriatic Sea stretching out like a blue carpet and the Italian countryside rolling away in every direction, like a Renaissance painting that someone actually gets to live in. What's really wild is how the geography shapes daily life. In most countries, you drive from city to city. In San Marino, you drive from neighborhood to neighborhood, and each trip involves either going up a mountain or down a mountain. There is no such thing as a casual stroll to the grocery store here. Everything is either an uphill hike that will test your cardiovascular health or a downhill slide that will test your brakes. The locals have leg muscles that would make professional cyclists weep with envy, and they probably don't even realize it. The climate is classic Mediterranean, hot, dry summers where the stones radiate heat like natural pizza ovens, and mild winters where you might actually need a light jacket. Rain comes in dramatic bursts that turn the medieval streets into temporary waterfalls, which is either romantic or terrifying depending on where you're standing when it starts. Snow is rare, but when it happens, the whole country looks like a fairy tale that someone dusted with powdered sugar. Now let's talk about the people who call this vertical wonderland home. Because the San Marinese are a special breed of human being. Imagine having a population small enough that you could theoretically know everyone's name, yet diverse enough to fill 9 different municipalities with distinct personalities. These are people who've spent 17 centuries perfecting the art of being small but mighty, and it shows in everything they do. The San Marinese have this incredible combination of Italian warmth and Swiss precision that creates a culture unlike anywhere else in Europe. They're very proud of their independence in a way that makes Americans look casual about the 4th of July. Ask a local about their history, and you'll get a 45-minute passionate lecture about how they've survived every major European conflict by being too small to bother with and too well-positioned to conquer. It's like national pride distilled into pure, concentrated essence. What's fascinating is how they handle their dual identity. They're technically not Italian, but they use the euro, speak Italian, and share so much culture with their neighbors that tourists often can't tell the difference. It's like being siblings with Italy, close enough to borrow each other's clothes, different enough to maintain separate bedrooms. The San Marinese will politely correct you if you call them Italian, but they'll also happily debate Italian football with the passion of lifelong Serie A fans. The social structure here is beautifully weird. In a country this small, everyone knows everyone, which means gossip travels at the speed of light and privacy is more of a theoretical concept than a practical reality. Your barista knows your coffee order, your parking habits, and probably your relationship status. The upside is incredible community support. Need help moving? Half the neighborhood shows up. Having a bad day? Someone's grandmother will materialize with homemade pasta and life advice. Family life in San Marino operates on Italian principles, but with mountain practicality. Sunday dinners are sacred, multi-generational affairs where everyone shows up regardless of age, relationship status, or whatever drama happened last week. The elderly are respected like living libraries, and children grow up thinking it's perfectly normal to have medieval towers in their backyard. 3-generation households are common, partly due to housing costs and partly because that's just how things work. When your entire country could fit inside a decent-sized city, the work-life balance here is enviably Mediterranean. Lunch is a serious affair that can stretch. For 2 hours, businesses often close for siesta, and the idea of working weekends is viewed with the same horror. Americans reserve for pineapple on pizza, yet somehow everything gets done, the economy functions, and people seem genuinely happy with their lives. It is like they've figured out the secret that the rest of the world is still searching for. Education is a big deal here, partly because in a country this small, Everyone needs to be competent at everything. Kids grow up bilingual by default, learn their history from buildings they walk past every day, and develop a sense of civic responsibility that would make ancient Greek philosophers proud. University often means leaving for Italy or other European countries, but many come back with degrees and fresh perspectives that keep the culture evolving. The San Marinese have perfected the art of being welcoming without being pushy. Tourism is crucial to their economy, but they've managed to avoid becoming a theme park version of themselves. Locals go about their daily business while tourists snap photos, creating this interesting parallel universe where authentic life happens alongside careful preservation of heritage. It's like living in a museum that's still fully functional. Let us be honest about San Marino as food scene. It has basically Italian cuisine, with a superiority complex, and somehow it actually earns that attitude. The San Marinese have taken classic Italian cooking, added their own mountain-influenced twists, and created a food culture where even a simple lunch feels like a celebration. This is a place where the phrase fast food is considered mildly offensive, and where suggesting eating dinner before 8 p.m. will get you concerned. Looks like you might need medical attention. The star of the show is piadina, and if you don't know what that is, prepare to have your life changed. This isn't just bread. It has a flatbread that has been perfected over centuries into something that has part tortilla, part naan, and part pure magic. They make it fresh throughout the day, rolling it thin and cooking it on cast iron griddles that have probably been seasoned by decades of deliciousness. The smell alone will make you forget whatever diet you were trying to follow. But here's where San Marino gets sneaky with their piadina game. While the basic recipe is simple: flour, water, salt, and lard. Yes, lard. Deal with it. Each place has their own secret proportions and techniques. Some make it thick and fluffy, others roll it paper thin. Some add milk for softness, others swear by pure simplicity. The result is that you can spend days trying different versions and never get bored. It's like a delicious scientific experiment where every hypothesis involves cheese. The fillings are where things get really exciting. Sure, you can go classic with prosciutto and squacquerone cheese, but why stop there? They stuff these things with everything from grilled vegetables to Nutella. Don't judge, creating combinations that somehow work despite sounding completely insane on paper. The cassone is basically piadina's stuffed cousin. Think calzone, but better, filled with ricotta, spinach, or whatever the cook feels like experimenting with that day. Pasta culture here operates on a completely different level than most tourist destinations. This isn't about serving endless bowls of spaghetti to hungry visitors. It is about treating pasta like the art form it was always meant to be. Tagliatelle comes handmade with ragu that's been simmering since before you woke up. Cappelletti arrive in delicate broths that taste like someone's nana whispered all her secrets into the pot. Strozzopreti pasta, which literally translates to priest stranglers, don't ask, gets tossed with local ingredients that change with the seasons. The wine situation in San Marino is hilariously serious. Yes, they make their own wine, and yes, it's actually good, which seems unfair for a country that's barely bigger than Manhattan. The Sangiovese here has its own protected designation, and locals will passionately explain the differences between their grapes and everyone else's, with the intensity of sommeliers defending their dissertations. Moscato production is equally serious business, creating sweet wines that pair perfectly with local desserts, and existential conversations about how country this small ended up making everything so well. Bustringo deserves its own paragraph because this dessert is basically edible proof that the San Marinese understand joy on a molecular level. It's a traditional cake packed with dried fruits, nuts, honey, and enough love to power a small village. Every family has their own recipe, passed down through generations like classified documents. The result is dense, sweet, and complex enough that you'll find yourself analyzing each bite like a food critic who has forgotten how to just enjoy things. Coffee culture here follows Italian rules, but with mountain timing. Morning cappuccinos are sacred, afternoon espressos are mandatory, and ordering a cappuccino after 11 a.m. will earn you the kind of gentle disappointment usually reserved for children who've made poor life choices. The bars, which are actually cafes, not drinking establishments, serve as unofficial community centers where local politics get debated, gossip gets exchanged, and tourists get educated about proper coffee etiquette whether they ask for it or not. Restaurants in San Marino operate on the radical principle that meals should be experiences, not fuel stops. Dinner starts late, progresses slowly, and involves multiple courses that arrive when they're ready, not when you're hungry. Rushing is considered a personal character flaw, and the concept of to-go containers exists mainly to confuse American tourists. Reservations are recommended not just for seating, but so restaurants can prepare for the commitment of properly feeding you. Dating in San Marino is like playing romantic chess in a transparent box while the entire country watches and offers commentary. When your entire dating pool consists of roughly 17,000 adults spread across 9 municipalities, everyone knows everyone's relationship history, current status, and probably their preferences in breakfast cereal. Privacy isn't just limited, it's practically a myth, which creates a social dynamic that's equal parts hilarious and terrifying. The San Marinese approach to relationships blends Italian passion with small-town pragmatism in ways that would make reality TV producers weep with joy. Everyone's ex is someone else's cousin, co-worker, or neighbor, which means breakups require the diplomatic skills of United Nations mediator and the memory management of a politician. Feuds get complicated when your ex starts dating your barista's sister, and suddenly your morning coffee routine becomes an exercise in strategic planning. But here is what is actually beautiful about San Marino's dating scene. The community investment in relationships is intense but supportive. When couples get together, it's not just two people dating. It's two extended networks merging with the enthusiasm of corporate acquisitions. Families get involved, friends offer opinions, and the entire social structure shifts slightly to accommodate the new pairing. Breaking up, conversely, requires community-wide adjustment periods and strategic friend allocation that would challenge professional mediators. Gender roles in San Marino operate on evolved Italian principles with modern European adjustments. Women are expected to be strong, opinionated, and capable of running businesses, households, and local politics simultaneously. Men are expected to be charming, family-oriented, and able to discuss everything from football to philosophy without missing a beat. The result is relationships built on mutual respect, shared responsibilities, and the understanding that both partners need to contribute to the conversation at dinner parties. That will inevitably include half the neighborhood. Marriage here isn't just a personal choice. It's a community event that requires months of planning, involves everyone you've ever met, and creates ripple effects through the social structure that lasts for decades. Weddings are epic celebrations where the entire extended family network shows up to eat, dance, and evaluate whether this union improves the overall social harmony of their particular municipality. Divorce exists, but requires the same level of community adjustment as major construction projects. The nightlife scene is wonderfully limited and thoroughly charming. With a population this small, you can't really have anonymous club scenes or random hookup cultures. Everyone knows where you were last night, who you were with, and probably what you ordered to drink. This creates a nightlife that's more about socializing with friends, celebrating occasions, and enjoying good conversation than about scanning rooms for potential romantic targets. It's refreshingly honest and surprisingly relaxing once you accept that your business is everyone's business. Young San Marinese face the interesting challenge of finding independence in a place where independence is geographically limited. Moving out often means moving to a different neighborhood, not a different city, which means your parents can still drop by unannounced with homemade pasta and relationship advice. Dating someone from outside San Marino opens up possibilities, but also introduces complications about where to live, work, and raise potential children in a country where citizenship is precious and carefully guarded. Social gatherings operate on the principle that if you are going to see the same people repeatedly for the rest of your life, you might as well make those interactions pleasant. House parties include multiple generations, community events draw genuine participation, and celebrations get elaborate because everyone's going to remember them forever anyway. It is like living in a small town where the small town happens to be an independent nation, with its own postage stamps. The influence of social media on San Marino relationships is hilariously complicated. Instagram. Posts get analyzed by people who actually know the locations, the other people in the photos, and probably the backstory behind every smile. Facebook relationship status updates become community news. And dating app profiles are unnecessary when everyone already knows your personality, family background, and romantic history. It's like social media transparency taken to its logical extreme. San Marino's approach to governance and social rules reads like someone took medieval common sense, added modern bureaucracy, and then filtered the results through 1,700 years of if it isn't broken, don't fix it. Philosophy. The result is a collection of laws, traditions, and social expectations that range from charmingly anachronistic to genuinely bizarre, all enforced with the gentle persistence of people who've had centuries to perfect the art of polite stubbornness. Let's start with the elephant in the room, or rather the two elephants. Because San Marino is run by dual heads of state called captains regent who serve 6-month terms, and basically spend their time making sure the other one isn't getting too ambitious. It's like a buddy system for preventing dictatorship, and it has been working since 1600. These aren't figurehead positions either. These people actually run the country, attend international meetings, and somehow manage to govern effectively despite changing leadership every 6 months like a governmental temp agency. The citizenship laws in San Marino are wonderfully exclusive in ways that would make exclusive country clubs jealous. You can't just move here and become San Marinese. You need to live here for at least 20 years. Renounce your previous citizenship. They don't do dual citizenship because commitment means something, and then convince the Grand and General Council that you're worthy of joining their 34,000-person club. It's harder to become a San Marinese citizen than it is to get into Harvard, and the application process involves more personal scrutiny than most security clearances. But here's where the rules get delightfully weird. San Marino has laws about car door slamming that were designed to reduce noise pollution, which sounds reasonable until you realize this means there's actual legislation about how loudly you can close your car door. There are regulations about domestic workers that require them to be over 50 years old, ostensibly to protect elderly citizens from being taken advantage of, but really creating a job market that operates like a reverse ageism experiment. The festival culture here operates on the principle that if you're going to celebrate something, you might as well do it properly and repeatedly. Medieval days transformed the entire historic center into a time machine, where locals dress in period costumes, demonstrate medieval crafts, and stage tournaments that involve actual skill rather than tourist entertainment. The crossbow competition is serious business. These aren't cosplayers having fun. These are athletes competing in a sport that their ancestors actually used for national defense. September 3rd is National Day, which celebrates the founding of the Republic with the kind of patriotic enthusiasm usually reserved for countries that are at least 10 times larger. The entire population turns out for parades, speeches, and celebrations that somehow manage to feel both formal and intimate. Imagine 4th of July festivities, where the entire crowd could fit in a high school football stadium, and you'll get the idea. The Palio del Ballester Antich is an annual crossbow tournament that pits San Marino against Gubbio in Italy, continuing a friendly rivalry that's been going on for decades. Watching grown adults get genuinely competitive about medieval weapons while dressed in historically accurate costumes is simultaneously hilarious and impressive. These tournaments require actual skill, training, and dedication to what is essentially recreational warfare, and the winners are celebrated like Olympic champions. Religious festivals blend Catholic tradition with local customs in ways that create celebrations unique to San Marino. The Feast of St. Marinus in September honors their founder with processions, special masses, and community gatherings that draw San Marinese from around the world back to their mountain homeland. These aren't tourist attractions. They raise genuine expressions of cultural identity that happen to be beautiful enough for visitors to enjoy. The Christmas markets in San Marino are small but perfectly formed, offering local crafts, traditional foods, and gift items that you literally cannot buy anywhere else on Earth. Shopping here during the holidays means supporting local artisans who've been perfecting their crafts for generations while drinking mulled wine and listening to conversations in Italian that occasionally drift into passionate debates about crossbow techniques or municipal politics. The legal system here still operates under some principles that date back centuries, creating a judicial atmosphere that's both modern and traditional. Court proceedings are conducted with formality that would impress international diplomats, partly because in a country this small, legal decisions affect everyone either directly or indirectly. Justice is taken seriously because there's nowhere to hide from the consequences of poor decisions. Alright, let's talk money, because this is where San Marino gets really interesting from a practical standpoint. Living on $500 in a microstate that uses the euro attracts Italian tourists and operates like a duty-free shopping destination sounds like either a brilliant hack or a recipe for financial disaster. The reality, as usual, is more complicated and more entertaining than either extreme would suggest. Accommodation is where your budget will either thrive or die a dramatic death, depending on your standards and timing. A decent hotel room in San Marino City during tourist season will cost you 90 to 120 euros per night, which means your entire $500 budget disappears in about 4 days if you're rethinking like a typical tourist. But here's where local knowledge becomes crucial. There are guest houses, B&Bs, and family-run establishments scattered throughout the 9 municipalities that operate on completely different pricing structures. The secret weapon for budget accommodation is staying outside the historic center in places like Domagnano or Borgo Maggiore, where locals actually live and where tourism hasn't inflated prices to astronomical levels. You can find rooms for 40 to 60 euros per night if you're willing to take a short bus ride or cable car trip to reach the main attractions. It's like staying in Queens instead of Manhattan, except the commute involves medieval architecture and mountain views instead of subway delays. Food costs in San Marino operate on a 2-tier system that can either bankrupt you or feed you like royalty, depending on how you approach it. Tourist restaurants in the historic center will charge you 15 to 25 euros for a simple pasta dish, 8 to 12 euros for a piadina, and enough for a decent meal to fund a small political campaign. But venture into the neighborhoods where locals eat, and suddenly you're looking at piadinas for 4 to 6 euros, full meals for 12 to 15 euros, and wine that costs less than bottled water in most American cities. The grocery situation is fascinatingly limited and surprisingly affordable. San Marino has supermarkets that stock everything you need, but the selection operates on small country logic. You get what's available, when it's available, at prices that reflect the absence of major competition. A weekend's worth of groceries for basic cooking runs about 60 to 80 euros if you shop like a local, focusing on seasonal ingredients and avoiding imported luxuries that cost more than the GDP of small nations. Transportation costs in San Marino are beautifully simple because distances are hilariously short. The cable car from Borgo Maggiore to San Marino City costs 2.80 euros each way, which sounds reasonable until you realize you could probably walk the distance faster than waiting for the next departure. Bus service connects all 9 municipalities for minimal cost, but schedules operate on Mediterranean time, which means punctuality is more of a general guideline than a strict requirement. The real budget hack is understanding that San Marino operates like an extended Italian neighborhood rather than a separate country for most practical purposes. You can cross into Italy without passport checks, shop in Italian supermarkets at Italian prices, and then return to San Marino for accommodation and sightseeing. It's like having access to 2 countries' worth of options while only paying for 1 country's worth of tourist taxes. Entertainment and attractions in San Marino are surprisingly budget-friendly because most of what you came to see is either free or very reasonably priced. Walking the historic streets costs nothing. Climbing the towers requires a small entrance fee that's worth every euro. Museums operate on honor system pricing that assumes you're not trying to bankrupt the microstate's cultural budget. The most expensive entertainment is probably wine tasting, and even that operates on Italian standards rather than tourist trap pricing. Shopping presents interesting budget opportunities. Because San Marino operates as a duty-free zone for many items, perfume, alcohol, cigarettes, and certain electronics cost less than they would in Italy or other European countries. For budget travelers, this means you can actually save money on certain purchases while experiencing the novelty of shopping in a country that fits entirely within most city limits. The reality of living on $500 in San Marino for a week is entirely possible with planning, flexibility, and willingness to live more like a local than a tourist. Budget 100 to 250 euros for accommodation in non-tourist areas. 150 to 200 euros for food if you mix restaurant meals with grocery shopping. 50 euros for transportation and incidentals. And you'll have money left over for souvenirs, wine, or emergency gelato purchases. The key is understanding that San Marino rewards travelers who approach it as a community to explore rather than an attraction to consume. Getting around San Marino is like playing a three-dimensional puzzle, where all the pieces are connected by roads that were designed by medieval engineers, who clearly never heard of the concept wheelchair accessible. Every trip involves either going up something, down something, or around something, creating a transportation network that's equal parts functional and cardiovascular workout program. The famous cable car between Borgo Maggiore and San Marino City is basically a vertical bus system that hauls people up and down the mountain with the regularity of a Swiss timepiece and the charm of an amusement park ride, running every 15 minutes during peak season. This little gondola system connects the lower parking areas with the historic center, saving tourists from what would otherwise be a leg-burning hike up medieval streets that were designed for people who consider walking uphill a normal part of daily life. But here's what's really interesting about daily transportation in San Marino. Most locals just drive everywhere, despite living in a country smaller than most suburban shopping districts. The road network is actually quite good, winding through the municipalities with modern efficiency. But parking is an ongoing negotiation between tourist needs, local convenience, and geography that doesn't care about anyone's transportation preferences. Finding parking in San Marino City during summer is like playing a real-time strategy game where the stakes are your lunch plans and your leg muscles. The bus system connects all 9 municipalities with routes that operate on schedules. There are more suggestions than commitments. Buses run frequently enough to be useful, infrequently enough to require planning, and punctually enough to avoid frustration if you understand that on time means within reasonable proximity of the posted schedule. For locals, these buses are essential links between residential areas and work centers. For tourists, they're scenic routes that happen to provide transportation. Walking in San Marino requires a completely different mindset than pedestrian travel in flat countries. Every street has an opinion about elevation, every corner reveals new views or challenges, and every destination involves strategic planning about whether your cardiovascular system is prepared for the journey. The historic center is pedestrian-friendly in the sense that cars can't physically fit on many of the streets, but pedestrian-challenging in the sense that those streets were built for people who considered climbing mountains a normal daily activity. The motorcycle and scooter culture here is beautifully practical. Two-wheeled transportation makes perfect sense in a country where parking spaces are precious, distances are short, and half the roads are too narrow for comfortable car travel anyway. Locals zip around on scooters that navigate the mountain roads with the confidence of mountain goats, while tourists rent motorcycles and immediately discover that riding uphill on cobblestones require skills they didn't know they lacked. Daily commuting patterns in San Marino are fascinatingly complex for such a small place. Many San Marinese work in different municipalities from where they live, creating rush hour traffic that is significant relative to the road capacity, but hilarious compared to any major city. Traffic jams here last 10 to 15 minutes and involve maybe 100 vehicles total, creating congestion that's more social gathering than transportation crisis. The relationship between San Marino and Italian transportation networks is seamlessly integrated and occasionally bureaucratically hilarious. You can drive from Italy into San Marino without stopping, passport checks, or even clear signage in some areas. GPS systems sometimes get confused about which country they're in, leading to routing suggestions that involve crossing international borders to avoid traffic lights. The train system requires traveling to Rimini, since San Marino decided centuries ago that mountain fortress accessibility was more important than railway convenience. Delivery services in San Marino operate with the efficiency of people who've figured out how to navigate every possible route through a vertical landscape. Postal workers, delivery drivers, and service technicians develop intimate knowledge of shortcuts, alternate routes, and which streets are accessible to which vehicles. Amazon deliveries to San Marino are technically international shipping, but practical experience suggests packages arrive faster than they do in most Italian cities. The infrastructure for alternative transportation is surprisingly progressive. Bicycle paths connect municipalities where topography allows electric vehicle charging stations, accommodate the growing number of locals who've decided that climbing mountains is easier with battery assistance, and pedestrian routes provide scenic alternatives to vehicular transportation for people whose knees can handle the elevation changes. Seasonal transportation variations add another layer of complexity to daily life. Summer brings tourist traffic that multiplies vehicle volumes. Winter weather occasionally creates road conditions that challenge even experienced mountain drivers. And festival seasons transform transportation patterns as streets get closed for parades, markets, and celebrations that take precedence over vehicular convenience. San Marino's approach to attractions is refreshingly honest. Instead of creating artificial tourist destinations, they've simply preserved and maintained what was already there, resulting in a country where nearly everything worth seeing is authentic, historically significant, and genuinely beautiful rather than manufactured for visitor consumption. The three towers of San Marino aren't just photogenic landmarks, they're functional fortifications that have been defending this mountain for over 1,000 years. Guida, the oldest and largest tower, sits at the highest point of Mount Titano like a stone sentinel that has seen every major European historical event from the best seats in the house. Climbing to the top involves navigating medieval stairs that were built for people who were apparently much smaller and more athletic than modern tourists. But the views from the ramparts are worth every huffing breath and muscle complaint. Sesta Tower houses the Museum of Ancient Weapons, which sounds like it might be boring until you realize you're looking at actual medieval crossbows, swords, and armor in the place where they were actually used for national defense. These aren't replicas or theatrical props, they're working weapons that defended an independent republic against real threats from real armies. The collection includes items that are beautiful, terrifying, and historically significant enough to make military historians weep with professional joy. Montal Tower is smaller and less accessible than its siblings, but it offers the kind of solitary contemplation that's increasingly rare in tourist destinations. Standing here, you can understand exactly why St. Marinus chose this mountain for his refuge. It's defensible, beautiful, and isolated enough to feel separate from the world's problems while remaining connected to everything important. The historic center of San Marino operates as a living museum where every building has stories, every street has history, and every view has been inspiring people for centuries. The Basilica of San Marino houses the remains of the Republic's founder, creating a pilgrimage destination that draws both religious visitors and history enthusiasts. The architecture here represents centuries of building, rebuilding, and maintaining structures that needed to be both beautiful and defensible. The State Museum showcases artifacts that tell the story of how a tiny mountain community became an independent nation and stayed that way through every possible historical challenge. The exhibits include everything from ancient Roman coins to modern diplomatic documents, creating a timeline that spans nearly to millennia of continuous independence for a small museum. The collection is remarkably comprehensive and genuinely moving. The government palace serves as both working government building and tourist attraction, which creates the amusing situation where visitors can watch actual democracy in action while taking selfies in front of the changing of the guard ceremony. The building itself is beautiful, the ceremonies are genuinely impressive, and the fact that you can observe the government of an entire country from the public square says something wonderful about both transparency and scale. the natural landscapes surrounding the historic attractions are equally compelling. Mount Titano provides hiking trails that range from gentle walks, suitable for casual tourists, to challenging climbs that reward serious hikers with views that extend to the Adriatic Sea and across the Italian countryside. The limestone geology creates interesting cave systems, rock formations, and cliffside paths that offer adventure opportunities for people who find medieval architecture insufficiently exciting. The Palazzo Pubblico houses both government offices and ceremonial spaces that visitors can tour when they were not being used for actual governing. The Sala del Consiglio, where the Grand and General Council meets, is smaller than most high school auditoriums, yet this is where laws are passed that govern an entire nation. The scale is both intimate and impressive, creating the unique experience of seeing democracy operating at human-sized proportions. The Postal Museum might sound boring until you realize that San Marino S stamps are collector S items worldwide, and their postal history includes some genuinely interesting stories about how a tiny country maintained international connections throughout centuries of European upheaval. The exhibit showcased stamps, postal equipment, and correspondence that document the Republic's relationships with the outside world. The views from various points around San Marino are consistently spectacular, but each location offers different perspectives and moods. Sunrise from the eastern ramparts transforms the Italian countryside into a golden landscape that seems to stretch forever. Sunset from the western towers creates dramatic silhouettes in colors that change every few minutes. Night views reveal the lights of Italian cities scattered across the plains like terrestrial constellations. San Marino's approach to safety and security is beautifully simple. When everyone knows everyone, and your entire country can be crossed in 30 minutes, crime becomes both logistically difficult and socially impossible. The result is a safety level that makes other European countries look dangerously chaotic by comparison, creating an environment where the biggest security concerns involve tourist traffic and the occasional heated discussion about municipal politics. The crime statistics for San Marino read like a joke that isn't trying to be funny. Violent crime is so rare that individual incidents become local news for months. Property crime exists mainly in the form of tourist-targeted pickpocketing during busy seasons, and even that operates at levels that would be considered non-existent in most major cities. The police force is professional, approachable, and probably spends more time helping lost tourists find their hotels than investigating serious crimes. Healthcare in San Marino operates on principles that would make universal healthcare advocates weep with joy. The system provides comprehensive coverage for citizens and residents, maintains modern facilities that serve the entire population, and coordinates seamlessly with Italian healthcare networks for specialized services that require larger populations to sustain. For a country of 34,000 people, to maintain this level of medical care is genuinely impressive from both administrative and financial perspectives. The hospital of San Marino is small but exceptionally well equipped, staffed by professionals who provide care at levels that consistently rank among Europe's best. Emergency services coordinate with Italian hospitals for cases requiring specialized treatment, creating a healthcare network that gives residents access to world-class medical care. Despite living in a country smaller than most metropolitan hospital districts, the response times for emergency services are hilariously fast when your entire country can be traversed in minutes. Mental health services and social support systems benefit from the same small community advantages that enhance physical safety. When everyone knows everyone, social isolation becomes nearly impossible. Mental health crises receive immediate community attention, and support networks form naturally rather than requiring institutional intervention. It's like having a built-in therapy network that operates through family connections, neighborhood relationships, and social traditions that prioritize community welfare. The education system produces results that consistently outperform much larger and better funded national systems. Students benefit from small class sizes, personalized attention, and educational experiences that include living history lessons conducted in actual historical locations. The University of San Marino maintains high academic standards while providing education that is both internationally recognized and deeply rooted in local culture and values. Environmental safety and public health benefit from geography, population density, and cultural attitudes that prioritize long-term community welfare over short-term convenience. Air quality remains excellent despite tourist traffic. Water resources are carefully managed and protected, and waste management operates with efficiency that reflects both practical necessity and environmental consciousness. When you can't export your problems to distant locations, you develop systems that actually solve them locally. The social safety net in San Marino operates through formal government programs and informal community support that creates multiple layers of assistance for anyone experiencing difficulties. Unemployment benefits, housing assistance, and social services are comprehensive relative to the population size, while community support provides additional help through family networks, religious organizations, and neighborhood connections that respond quickly to individual needs. Quality of life measurements consistently place San Marino among the world's best places to live, which makes sense when you consider the combination of safety, healthcare, education, community support, and natural beauty available to residents. The work-life balance reflects Mediterranean values. Stress levels remain low due to community support and manageable living costs. And life expectancy figures suggest that whatever the San Marinese are doing, it's working remarkably well. Living as an expat in San Marino is like joining the world's most exclusive small town, where membership requires patience, persistence, and genuine commitment to becoming part of the community rather than just residing in a location. The practical challenges are significant, the bureaucratic requirements are extensive, and the social integration process demands years rather than months. But the rewards for those who succeed are genuinely unique. The visa and residency requirements operate on principles that would challenge immigration lawyers. From larger countries, EU citizens have easier access than others, but even they face requirements that include proving financial self-sufficiency, demonstrating integration into local community life, and maintaining residence requirements that are strictly monitored. Non-EU citizens face additional challenges, including work permits, housing requirements, and integration processes that can take years to complete successfully. Housing for expats presents interesting challenges in a market where available properties are limited. Prices reflect both local economics and international demand, and many of the best locations are reserved for families with multi-generational connections to specific neighborhoods. Rental properties exist, but often require local guarantors, long-term commitments, and integration into residential communities where your neighbors will know your daily routine. Whether you want them to or not, employment opportunities for expats are necessarily limited by the size of the economy. But the sectors that do welcome international residents, tourism, financial services, technology, and specialized consulting, often provide interesting work environments and career development opportunities that would be difficult to find elsewhere. The challenge is that most positions require Italian language skills, cultural knowledge, and professional qualifications that transfer effectively to San Marino's specific economic environment. The language situation is beautifully straightforward and practically challenging. Everyone speaks Italian. Most people understand English well enough for basic communication, and social integration requires functional Italian skills for everything from bureaucratic procedures to neighborhood relationships. Learning Italian in San Marino means learning from native speakers who are invested in your success, but it also means making mistakes in front of people you'll see regularly for years. Banking and financial services for expats operate within European Union frameworks, while maintaining San Marino's specific regulations and requirements. Opening bank accounts requires extensive documentation. Maintaining accounts involves fees and procedures that reflect the country's banking secrecy traditions. And financial planning must account for tax implications that affect both San Marino residents and their international obligations. Social integration for expats happens through multiple channels that require active participation, rather than passive observation. Community events, religious organizations, professional associations, and neighborhood activities provide opportunities to build relationships. But success depends on approaching these interactions as someone who wants to contribute to community life rather than just benefit from it. The San Marinese are welcoming but expect genuine commitment to local values and traditions. The bureaucracy in San Marino operates with efficiency that reflects both small country advantages and Italian administrative traditions. Procedures that might take months in larger countries can be completed in weeks, but requirements are strictly enforced. Documentation must be thorough, and patience is essential when dealing with systems that prioritize accuracy over speed. Having local contacts who understand the procedures is invaluable for navigating requirements successfully. Healthcare access for legal residents is excellent, but temporary residents and tourists should maintain comprehensive insurance coverage. For medical emergencies, the coordination between San Marino and Italian healthcare systems works well for routine care, but emergency situations may require transportation to Italian hospitals, and specialized treatments often involve referrals to facilities in larger cities. After spending time examining every angle of life in San Marino, from the practical reality of surviving on $500 to the social complexity of dating in a fishbowl to the genuine charm of living in a functioning medieval republic, the verdict is surprisingly clear. This isn't just a tourist curiosity or a geographical accident that somehow survived into the modern era. San Marino represents something genuinely unique in today's world, a place that has figured out how to preserve the best parts of traditional community life while adapting to contemporary realities without losing its essential character. The $500 budget challenge proves entirely achievable with the right approach, planning, and willingness to live more like a local than a tourist. The key insights are simple but crucial. Stay outside the tourist zones, eat where locals eat, use public transportation or walk whenever possible, and approach San Marino as a community to join temporarily rather than an attraction to consume. The money stretches further than it would in most European destinations if you understand the local systems and resist the temptation to treat everything as a tourist experience. But the real revelation isn't about budget travel. It is about what San Marino represents in terms of alternative approaches to governance, community life, and cultural preservation. This is a place that has maintained independence not through military might or economic dominance, but through stubbornness, strategic intelligence, and genuine commitment to values that prioritize long-term community welfare over short-term convenience. The result is a society that works remarkably well by almost any measurement you care to apply. The strange rules and medieval traditions that initially seem like charming anachronisms reveal themselves to be functional approaches to governance that create stability, community cohesion, and quality of life that larger, more modern nations struggle to achieve. The dual head of state system prevents authoritarian tendencies. The strict citizenship requirements ensure community commitment, and the social traditions that prioritize family, neighborhood, and civic responsibility create support networks that make government intervention less necessary. The food culture alone justifies the trip, but it's really representative of a broader approach to daily life that values quality over quantity, tradition over innovation for its own sake, and community celebration over individual consumption. Every meal becomes a social event. Every festival brings the entire population together. And every day includes multiple opportunities for genuine human connection in ways that feel increasingly rare in larger, more anonymous societies. The challenges are real and shouldn't be minimized. Privacy is limited. Social pressure can be intense. Economic opportunities are constrained by scale. And the weather isn't always Mediterranean perfection. But for people seeking alternatives to the isolation, anonymity, and competitive individualism that characterize much of modern life, San Marino offers a genuinely different model that works surprisingly well in practice. The transportation systems, healthcare quality, safety levels, and environmental conditions consistently exceed what you'd expect from a country small enough to walk across in an hour. The natural beauty is stunning, the historical significance is genuine, and the cultural experiences are authentic rather than manufactured for tourist consumption. The combination creates travel experiences that feel meaningful rather than just entertaining. Most importantly, San Marino proves that small can be successful, that old traditions can address modern needs, and that community-oriented approaches to governance and social organization remain viable alternatives to the mega-scale systems that dominate contemporary political and economic thinking. It is not a perfect place, nowhere is, but it is a genuinely functional alternative that offers lessons and inspiration for anyone questioning whether traditional approaches to community life have anything useful to offer modern societies. So yes, you can survive on $500 in San Marino, but you'll leave understanding that the real value isn't economic. It is the experience of seeing how human-scale communities can thrive when they prioritize the right values, maintain genuine traditions, and refuse to sacrifice long-term community welfare for short-term individual advantages. In a world increasingly dominated by massive, impersonal systems, San Marino offers proof that smaller, more personal alternatives not only survive but actually work better for the people who choose to embrace them. Comment below if you're planning a trip to San Marino, and let us know what surprised you most about this tiny mountain republic that has been giving bigger countries lessons in survival for over 17 centuries. Subscribe for more explorations of Europe's hidden gems. And remember, sometimes the smallest places have the biggest lessons to teach.